Hi, my name is Malin, and for the last 10 months, I've been investigating the genetic system of The Sims 4. I made a sim, Nadine Smith, with random genetics and had her have a baby with every townie in my game, and I think I've finally figured out just about the entire genetic system. So in this presentation, I'm going to show you the results of this experiment, starting with some gameplay footage as I explain my methods of data collection and some interesting patterns and things that happened. Then I'm going to talk about townies, then the babies that were born to them, the genetic system, fertility rates and twinning, statistics by world, and the connections to real life. Anyway, let's get started. So I first thought of experimenting not to investigate the genetics, but to investigate the gender ratio. In my legacy save, I played with a lot of girl sims, but they kept having sons. Anyway, that led to my first hypothesis, that babies in the sims have a realistic gender ratio, either the 1-to-1 that is expected, or something close to the 1.05 to 1 male to female seen in the United States. Or maybe something similar that skews female. I also wanted to see if traits are inherited not only in a realistic way, but in a predictable way. In real life, you get your hair color and your eye color from your parents, and that's pretty obvious. But then I'm not a biologist, so I don't really know how nose works, but I investigated noses too. Some update information. I created this save on March 22nd, 2024. As of the creation and now, only the Goths and the Calientes have been refreshed. There were no updates in cast to the number of colors or features, except for the extra eye color I got from the Reaper's rewards, but I never saw it come up. Additionally, the Grim Reaper was not included, but believe me, I would have included him if I could have. Why did they put that behind a paywall? Unfair. And finally, the main experiment concluded on December 7th, 2024, and I then experimented with mermaid genetics, which took a few more days and concluded on December 11th, 2024. I found a pregnancy calculator online, and funnily enough, if this experiment were a baby, it would have been born 2 days early. Finally, this is Nadine Smith. She is female, and in this picture, she's currently in her second trimester. Her skin tone is warm 11. Her eye color is 17, which is red. Her eye shape is 30. Her eyebrow shape is 55. Her hair color is 3, which is like a dark brown. Her nose shape is 4. Her mouth shape is 8. And her body shape is 6. Oh, and she has no skin details. All of these features were randomized using CAS, like the dice button. While I explain my methodology and data collection, I'm going to play sped up gameplay footage from pretty late in the experiment. This was the 106th pregnancy, which was Luca Harjo. Right now, you can see Nadine has just invited him over and is attempting to flirt with him. Luca was not the first of the Harjo family, so all of his genetics have already been recorded. At the time of this project, I had 8 worlds with townies, and all of the currently in world sims were included from the worlds Willow Creek, Oasis Springs, Windenburg, San Myshuno, Brindleton Bay, Sulani, Henford-on-Bagley, and Copperdale. However, I decided to include some other sims as well. Clement Frost, Halimenu Iona, Ukupanipu Hekekia, Paka'uha, Neilani Mahi'ai, those last 4 are just the mermaids, Bernard and Mimsy, the ghosts from Windenburg, who I brought back to life with Ambrosia, Agnes Crumplebottom, and an exact clone of Nadine Smith named Yadine Smith. Agnes Crumplebottom was included among the other Henford-on-Bagley townies because she was done right before them, and mermaids were done with Sulani townies. But Bernard and Mimsy are still included along the Windenburgians, even though they were done later. I wanted to be as consistent as possible in how I played this save. First of all, aging is off. I wrote down the name of every townie in order of world and went through them in order, and almost all babies were born from a pregnancy, not a science baby, and were born in my household. After aging up each sim, I did not touch any features. After each baby was born, I aged them up to a young adult and recorded their features in the same way as their parents. Then the baby was moved in with their other parent. For each sim, both babies and parents, I recorded 12 things: name, sex, skin tone category, skin tone number, eye color, eye shape, eyebrow shape, hair color, nose shape, mouth shape, skin details, and body shape. So most values were a number based on its location in the list, numbering from left to right and top down, and skin details were either no, moles, freckles, or age lines. For the parents, the number of try for baby attempts was also recorded. At the conclusion of the experiment, Nadine had a baby with an exact clone of herself, Yadine Smith had another baby with Rashida Watson to test quit without saving effects, and had 6 more kids with Noah Kane to examine sibling similarities. Rashida and Noah were chosen at random, and I then did some experimentation with a randomized mermaid to study mermaid genetics, since I do have that available to me. Sophia Singer, the mermaid, had babies with 5 Sulani sims and the 4 mermaids. The genders, genetics, and other info of the 12 resulting babies are not included in the main results presented, although Sophia did have 3 sets of twins, including 2 of them being consecutive. I did not use the twinning rates from this part either. I'll go into all this a little later, but I also want to talk about some observations I had while playing, as well as explain what my save ended up looking like. So at the start of this save, it was really boring. So when the 8th pregnancy was Father Winter, and when he had no house in which to dump his daughter, I decided to keep her, partly because her name was Elsa, like the Frozen princess. When Elsa wasn't child, I got a pop-up that said, should Elsa invite over classmate Elsa? And I hadn't had to get together for very long at this point, and I forgot that there is a townie in that pack named Elsa, who is a child. I thought it was a glitch, so I hit yes, and Elsa Bergson showed up.
The two looked at each other weird, and I was like, these two are marrying each other. But by the time Nadine got to Windenburg, Elsa and Elsa were married, so I did re-download another Elsa Bjergsen and named her Elsba Bjergsen. After that, the three of them lived in the same house, and I started trying to complete every single collection and aspiration. The family did move lots 3 times, but they always stayed in Willow Creek. However, eventually my game started lagging, so I had to go back to a lot of the early babies and delete a lot of the Townies, leaving just 1 adult in each household. No babies were deleted. They are the heart of this experiment. Anyway, on to observations. Right away, I got twins on the 2nd pregnancy, summer holiday. I've only gotten twins twice before. Once by accident, and once using online line, and that one still took 2 pregnancies. Furthermore, I had never gotten triplets, but they happened on the 7th pregnancy. Also, I say had because after Nadine's 94th child, I got triplets in my legacy challenge. They were the 2nd pregnancy that started Generation 10. My Ear's brother, Waffle, got his girlfriend Abby pregnant right out of high school. 3 days later, I get a notification that she had triplets. There was no online line, there was no outside influence, she just had triplets. Except I already had a plan for that generation, so I deleted 2 of the babies and made my own canon. Candy Bear and Yuki Bear are sisters in Windenburg. They are nearly identical, differing only in hair color, and their eye color is off by 1. Elsa Bjergsen, Max Villarreal, Alexander Goff, and Myra Watson will seemingly age up bold in every save. They're a child at the start of a new save, but they don't even have the bold hair selected. They just have no hair, like no hair color, and so choosing any style will give them hair color 1. Also not an observation, but I do want to brag that after 48 kids, Nadine won the lottery, and I'd only had seasons for less than a year at that point, and so I built them a million simoleon mansion, which is the house you're seeing in the video. Back to Windenburg, 35% of the Townies, not including Bernard and Mimsy, had skin tone warm number 7. And in Sulani, 46.6% of Townies, including the Mermaids, had skin tone warm number 12. When first aged up in cast, identical twins generally had the same hair and eyebrow shape. Henford on Bagley is the most skin tone diverse world, and by skin tone, I mean the category. And obviously, this is due to it being the first pack I owned released after the skin tone update. The Sims that were hardest to flirt with were Wolfgang Munch, Victor Fang, Eva Capricosa, Yasminder Bita, Diego Lobo, Supriel Delgado, Makoa Kialoa, and obviously Agnes Crumplebottom. Wolfgang, Eva, and Yasminder all have red bars with Nadine now, and also Ian Moody for some reason. Some other notable Sims are Jeffrey Landgrab, who took 3 woohoos, Makoa Kialoa, who took 3 woohoos, Pierce Delgado, who took 5 woohoos, Caitlin Smith, who is Yuki Bear's daughter, and the spitting image of Yuki, varying only slightly in skin tone, because Nadine had a darker skin tone, and eyebrows, because eyebrows are random. The Jang family is the only household with all neutral skin. Simon Smith is the first Townie with cool skin tone. Ava Harjo rejected Nadine with the pop-up, but her sexual orientation is romantic with men, but woohoo for both. And she's not exploring romantically. That did confuse me a bit. Also, she is in the first pack with this feature, though. The same would have happened with Noah Kane, but I did change him first to avoid getting rejected again. Also would have happened with Ash Harjo, but I changed them first too. Ash Harjo is the first sim set to neither for pregnancy ability. Obviously, I had to change that for purposes of the experiments. Also, they are the first non-binary sim, and just for reference, they are recorded as female because in cast there's a male-female and their symbol is the female one. They do also have a masculine frame. Also, why do they have a nose ring when one does not exist in my game? I searched every single category because I've had this pack for 2 years and I finally realized that if you know where to find the nose ring, please let me know. I want to find it. Also, Savannah Price was also set to neither and is also asexual. Obviously, I had to change these. Sorry for the asexual eraser, but this is science. Speaking of names, I made a list of the best baby names that randomized. They were all random. Elsa Smith is Father Winter's daughter. It's kind of like, Frozen Princess Snow. Jeff Smith, with Jeff spelled Geoff, was Nancy Landgrab's son. Spelled the same way as her husband's Jeffrey's name. That was too funny. Ahmad and Jagger Smith are Bjorn Bjergsen's identical twin sons, and I love the juxtaposition of the Arabic name and the Mick Jagger reference. And finally, Ash Harjo's son was named Dusty Smith, like Ash and Dust. That was also too good. There are also several names that repeated. There were 3 different spellings of Caitlin. The original spelling of Caitlin is Caitlin. The 3 that I got were Katelyn, Kaitlyn, and Kaitlyn. None of them are the original anglicization. I also got 2 Judys and a Judith, 3 Allens, all spelled the same way, Allan, 2 Carissas, one with a C, one with a K. I also got 2 Ryans, one was female, one was male, and they were born consecutively in the Kialoa household. I also got 2 Elis, Eli, 2 Lizettes, Lizette, 2 Eds, 2 Carries. However, the 2 Carries are technically different names. One was Keri and one was Carrie. They have different origins, but they're still both pronounced Carrie, I believe. I also got 2 Princetons, and there's a randomly generated Townie in the same, also named Princeton. I also got 2 Reginalds. One was the first baby, and one was like 7th from last. And 2 Kaylins, one spelled Kailyn, and one spelled Kaylyn. And that is the end of my script for this. Looks like there's a little bit of time. This is me recording the features. You can see I just counted each one. I had a little whiteboard with the numbers for each male and female one so I could keep track of them easier. I might sound a little out of breath. That's because I literally got home from college for winter break about 10 minutes ago.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the townies in the game. So there is a slight skew to the gender ratio of the townies that I have. There are 63 female and 56 male townies, determined by the male and female symbols and casts. So it skews ever so slightly female. This is the sex of the townies over time, without any repeats due to twins or something. But I mean, the first one was male, and then it kind of evened out. Then there was a couple male in a row, but overall, it kind of stayed just below the 50% line. So I mentioned that I recorded the woohoo attempts for every townie. It took 1.19 attempts on average for Nadine to become pregnant, and there was an 84.8% chance of pregnancy on the first try. And I would estimate that it's probably an even 85% chance of getting pregnant on the first try, and that's probably like what they coded for. There is a 12.7% chance of getting pregnant after 2 tries. 2 sims took 3 attempts and 1 sim took 5 attempts. The longest with 1 try, consecutively, was 25 sims before it got broken by 2 tries. All right, now we're on to talking about the babies. This is the sex difference between the babies born to the Townies and Nadine Smith, and you can see there are 74 female babies and 67 male babies. Now the Townies were 53% and 47%. This is 52 and 48. Again, the sex of baby was determined by the male and female symbols on casts, and custom gender options are non-inheritable. So, I play with a lot of lesbian sims, and I always set one to get pregnant and the other to get others pregnant. That's not inherited. I also mentioned that I experimented with a mermaid sim named Sophia Singer. And so her babies were born in clumps of 3, and they are not included in this data, but I thought it was interesting. It went 3 male, 3 female, 3 male, 3 female. And that was really interesting. This is a chart of the sex of babies over time. So the blue is the boys. You can see it started off with a lot more girls. It was way more disproportional, but it kind of evened out. It just slowly went up over time. And I think that's really interesting. Especially because the first baby was a boy. And like I said, marital question was related to the gender ratio, but it was also related to do same-sex couples in The Sims, are they more likely to have a baby of one gender? And from this experiment, kind of. In real life, 2 women could only have a daughter if you were able to, say, extract sperm from a woman and impregnate another woman. They could only have a daughter since there's no one to give the Y chromosome for a son. But in The Sims, Nadine and a woman were 1.4 times more likely to have a daughter than a son. Each either had 29 sons versus 41 daughters, and a woman and a man were more even, but actually skewing slightly male. So my theory did actually hold true that lesbians were more likely to have daughters, but that might just be this save. That might not necessarily be overall. Now, when each baby was born, I randomized the name, and being a little name nerd I am, I looked at the origins of each name and the rank of them in 2023. So this graph shows the rank in 2023 of each baby name. On the left is just the rank for that specific spelling, and on the right is an adjusted rank. So, for example, I got 3 Caitlyns, and they were all spelled differently, but none of them were the original Anglicization of the name Caitlyn or the most common spelling in 2023. So I adjusted it for all 3 Caitlyns, putting the rank of the most popular spelling of Caitlyn in 2023. Overall, there are 115 unique names, 12 names repeated, 3 repeated with a different spelling, and 1 repeated with a different sex. And most of these names are common in America. The rarest was Deidre, ranked 15,703 in 2023, probably due to the fact that it's Deirdre. There's 2 R's in that name, so it's a different spelling of it. The most common name was Elizabeth, which was ranked 14th in 2023. And for the adjusted spelling variants, the rarest was Ed. You can see that yellow point way up there, which was ranked 12,688 in 2023. And the second rarest was Deirdre, the correct spelling of Deirdre, ranked 6,714th in 2023. I also looked at the name origins. So you can see this bar chart here. The most common ones were English surnames and Hebrew names. So I used the culture associated with that form. So Elizabeth, for example, is the Greek form of a Hebrew name, so I just put Elizabeth as Greek. Most have common English usage, and even the ones with non-English origins were popular in America. They're the Arabic names that came up are popular Arabic names, and so therefore they are more popular in America too. So also just generally there were a lot of white people names. And one thing I want to note is that I have city living, and I get a lot of randomly generated townies with Japanese names from that pack. but there were no babies with Japanese names. Also, 20.6% of the names were surnames. That's coming from surname English and surname Irish. And 21.3 had some sort of English origin. Now, again, English origin means that it comes from English. So I had, surname English, English modern, English medieval, and English old, like Old English, medieval English. Also, I feel like I have a miscellaneous and other, and I'm going to go over that in the next slide. Okay, so some of the noteworthy names. The miscellaneous category was Xavier, which is a Basque name, Joy is a Breton name, Naeli is a Zapotec name, Martha an Aramaic name, Shayna is Yiddish, Milan is Slavic, Arjun is Hindi, and there are a couple unknown origins, which are the three Allens and Anaya. The other names, Rosemary, which is other because Rose is French, but Mary is English. Malaysia comes from the country. There are two Princetons, which kind of just relates to simultaneously, I guess, the college and the city that the college is in. Kenya is also a country. The name baby came up, and that is literally just the word for an infant. Marlene is a combination of Maria and Magdalene, and Lakeisha, which is possibly invented, but it's modern nonetheless. All right, now it's the time you've been waiting for, the genetic system of The Sims 4. First of all, I noticed, it actually took me embarrassingly long to notice this. There are different numbers of features for male and female Sims. So, whereas male Sims have 56 eye shapes, female Sims have 69. Males have 60 eyebrow shapes, but females have okay, females also have 60. Males have 30 nose shapes, but females only have 24. Males have 26 mouth shapes and females have 27. They do both have 9 body shapes. So let's start with skin tone. This graph shows the difference between a child's skin number and the parent's average. What that means is so Nadine had skin tone 11 and that was constant. And I took the other parent's skin tone and I took the average between them. And then to find the difference, I took the parent's average minus the child's skin tone number, and I took the absolute value of that, so it wasn't negative. Let's talk first about two parents with the same skin tone category, which generally was warm because Nadine had warm skin and a lot of the Townies do too. The child will be in the same category, with 97.5% of those within 2 places of the parent's average. And as you can see, Q3 to Q1, that is within 2 of the parent's average. There were 5 babies for whom the difference was larger than 3. The largest difference came from Sarah Scott, where the average between Nadine and Sarah was 34, and their child inherited Nadine's skin tone of 11, and that just led to the largest difference. Also, some but not all of the differences greater than 3 were inherited from one parent, but a few were not, and the others that inherited from one parent were different skin tones. Finally, I am unsure of result if the custom skin tone is used, like you have the sliders. I just stuck to the squares that are already there. But there's also different categories of skin tone. There's warm, neutral, and cool, and miscellaneous, but that never came up. I ended up with 19 couples with different categories, and 11 of those children inherited warm, which was Nadine, and the other 8 inherited from the other parent. About half of them inherited the same number as one parent. So, a couple of them got Nadine's warm 11 and a couple of them got the other parent's skin tone. The others are still within 2 of the difference. All right, next is eye color. This one's actually also pretty simple. So 48.9% of the babies had Nadine's red eyes, and I'm really glad she randomized to have red eyes because it made it super noticeable to find how the eye color worked. 46.1% of the babies got the other parent's eye color. Now that doesn't quite add up to 100, which is where it does get a little weird because 5% of the babies had neither, and the neither is 4 babies with color 7, but their parent had eye color 6. And if you look closely, eye color 7 is a shade of green, and eye color 6 is a different shade of green. There are also 2 babies with eye color 14, where their parent had eye color 15. And those are both shades of gray. So I'm not sure what was going on with eye color 6 and eye color 15 that it caused their children to have a slightly different color. But that was the only thing that got weird about eye color. In general, the babies inherit from one parent. And here you can see Nadine's daughter Elsa with Father Winter, and she has eye color 14, which is the same color as Santa. I had to check that she was not one of the babies with the weird shade of gray thing, but she's not. And this is pretty realistic inheritance in that you inherit from your parents. However, in real life, we have dominant and recessive genes. That does not seem to be a thing in The Sims, though. I am unsure about those 6 babies with the weird thing. I don't know what happened there. Hair color is also the easiest to predict, with 54.5% of babies inheriting Nadine's color 3 and 45.5% inheriting the other parent's color. And that's an even 100% of babies inheriting from one parent. And also, I do think the reason Nadine is slightly higher is just because a lot of Townies also inherit number 3, and so when I calculate the percentage in Excel, the baby is hair color 3, then I just attribute it to Nadine. But if both parents have hair color 3, then the baby will have hair color 3. When Sims age up to an elder, they're automatically given hair color number 17, which is great. And this resulted in some varied results. There were 7 elders who had 8 babies, and 4 of them aged up with gray hair. However, they had random hair color as an infant, since infants don't have those like dyed colors or the gray colors. But the other 4 babies aged up with Nadine's hair. And again, this is a pretty realistic inheritance, save the fact that doesn't seem to be any dominant or recessive genes. Finally, hair shape and style is random. Alright, the other easy one is skin details. I experimented with 4 types of skin details. Freckles, which had a 100% inheritance rate. Moles, which had a 0% inheritance rate. Age lines, also 0% inheritance rate. Although I will add data was taken from the babies when they were aged up to a young adult, so maybe that's not something I would have seen. Also, the other type, which is vitiligo or birthmarks, they did not show up on any of the Townies. This is my current legacy heir. I gave her vitiligo. I gave her vitiligo when she was like a child, and then she aged up, had twins. I aged up the twins, and they did not inherit the vitiligo, so when I made my mermaid sim, I intentionally gave her vitiligo, and so of her 12 babies born, there was no sight of vitiligo. It does not seem to be something that's inherited, and I looked it up, and that does seem to be how it is in real life. Overall, the skin details does make sense, and it is pretty realistic. Freckles are a dominant gene in real life, and so if your parent has freckles, you probably also have freckles. Now, before I get into nose, mouth, eyes, and body shape, I want to talk about gene mapping, because this is what I'm calling how the Sims 4 genetic system works. Because with 2 babies left, I finally figured it out. Very few babies were inheriting Nadine's nose. But then one of her daughters did, and I had been very confused by the noses in particular, since it seemed a large amount of male babies had nose 26, because female Sims don't even have 26 noses, so they're all male. And then it hit me. Nadine's nose number 4 is nose 26, but on male Sims. And sure enough, that baby that inherited Nadine's nose, I changed her to male, and she had nose 26. So in short, features map across the genders. There are different numbers of features, so some don't map at all and were recorded as 0, but like that's how it works. They map across the genders. So in CAS, I went through every feature and recorded the mappings, and I'm talking eyes, nose, mouth, body, head, jaw, cheek, and chin. Even though I didn't record those last 4 for the project, they do still map like that. And so female to male and male to female do see some similarities. Body shape may or may not map. That one was very confusing because all female shapes map to one male shape and all male shapes map to one female shape, so that was kind of confusing. It still does seem to be how it works. Let's look at the nose and mouth first, since I feel these are the most consistent ones. And you can see I have a graph of the translated nose shape here. So 46.1% of babies inherited Nadine's nose, either nose 4 if the baby was female, or nose 26 if the baby was male. The other parent accounted for 47.5% of the inheritances, and just 6.38% got neither. And the nose is the most predictable of all the features, and you can tell that just from the fact that in this graph, there is a pretty straight line on the diagonal, which means that the child and the parent had the same nose shape. I'm not sure what this other little perpendicular almost diagonal is, and there are a few points here and there, but this is generally pretty consistent. I mean, mouth shape was slightly less consistent, with 51.1% inheriting Nadine's mouth and only 34.8% inheriting the other parent's mouth, and 14.2% got neither parent. And there were 17 babies and 13 Townies with no selected mouth shape, which was just recorded as 0. Of those 17 babies, 8 had a parent with a mouth, but the other 9 did not have a parent with mouth, meaning they inherited mouth shape 0. Now for eyes, 45.3% got Nadine's eyes, and 36.2% didn't got the other parents, with 18.4% not inheriting them. Many of the ones who inherited neither were grouped within families. Anyway, the eyebrows, this was the other easiest one to predict. And by easiest to predict, I mean they're not inherited at all. 1.55% got Nadine's eyebrows. That was 2 babies. Another 2 babies got the other parent's eyebrows, and 96.9% got neither parents, because eyebrows generate randomly, just like hairstyle. So yeah, that one's also pretty easy because it just doesn't inherit. Now, as I mentioned, I was pretty confused by body shape. I think I'm missing something here. Like maybe in CAS, the mapping just doesn't work the same as it actually does when they have a baby. But even then, I investigated further, and there's not a clear pattern to body shape. But if we look at the non-translated body shape first, Nadine had body shape 6, and 45% inherited that number, not accounting male or female, just 45% of female and male babies had body shape 6, and 37.2% had the other parent's body, with 17.8% getting neither parent. And on close examination of the neithers, inheriting from neither parent seems to be random. I couldn't find a pattern. and it does not relate to the genders of the parents or children. If you look at the translated body shape, 42.6% got Nadine's body 6, but then 24.8% got the other parents, and the last 32.6% got neither parents. I'm not sure what's happening here, honestly. I gotta be honest. I said I had figured out about 95% of the genetics. This is like the 5% I'm unsure about. All right, and then after I concluded my experiment, I spent like one night experimenting with mermaid genetics. I didn't experiment with mermaids as much as I would have liked to, but I came up on finals week and I just really needed to focus, so I couldn't let myself get distracted by The Sims. So I just kind of had to stop it, and honestly, doing this project has kind of burnt me out on The Sims a bit. Anyway, with my limited mermaid experimentism, I created a mermaid sim with random genetics named Sophia Singer. Side note, her last name randomly generated as Smith on the first try, but I feel like too many Smiths would have been confusing, so I randomized it again. And so with both parents being mermaids, the child will always be a mermaid. There is 100% of them were mermaids. And in that child's mermaid form, they will inherit skin from one of their parents' mermaid's form. And as you can see, Sophia's mermaid form was purple. I randomized that until I got one in the miscellaneous category. I also gave her vitiligo, and that's how I experimented with the vitiligo. When one parent is mermaid, 4 out of the 11 children were mermaids, which is about 33%. I expected it to be like 50%, and maybe it is, and it's just because of my limited experimentation, but I got about a third of the children were mermaids when one parent was. For their mermaid form, they inherited skin from the human form of the human or the mermaid form of the mermaid. And in mermaid form, and some other stuff about the mermaid forms, 9 out of 13 retained their hair color from human form to mermaid form. I did try when I was making Sophia Singer to give her a different hair color in a mermaid form, but it wouldn't work for me. But there are mermaid townies that have different hair colors, so I think that might just be a glitch. 4 out of 13 retained eye color. However, there are more eye colors in the mermaid forms. Sophia's mermaid form did have a different eye color. 8 out of 13 retained eye shape, and then fin shape is random. Also, identical twins will share a mermaid form. And if you have one human, one mermaid parent, and you have fraternal twins, it could be one human, one mermaid. That did happen. Now, I know maybe a lot of people don't play with mermaids, but this does have application to other occults. And like I would imagine that there is the same chance of offspring having that occult trait, like with vampires. If you have one human, one vampire, maybe there's like a 33% chance the child will be a vampire. Okay, lastly for the genetics, let's look at this. Let's look at the similarities between siblings. So I went through every townie and then I randomly chose a townie to repeat to fill up a household. And that townie ended up being Noah Kane. So I had a total of 7 babies with Noah Kane. The last 6 babies were science babies, just to make the whole thing faster. Again, I was coming up on finals. There were 4 girls and 3 boys, and there was one set of twins who you can see pictured on the right here. The skin tone ranged from 9 to 11 in the warm category, 9 being Noah Kane's skin category, and 11 being Nadine's. There were a couple babies that had 10, so it was all within that small range. 4 had Noah's dark eye color, and 3 had Nadine's red eyes. 3 girls had eye shape 51, which is not a mapping, and the other girl had Nadine's eyes, and all had either Noah or Nadine's nose, accounting for mapping. And 5 had either Noah or Nadine's mouth. The other 2 did not. Now let's talk about fertility and twinning rates. I have pictures of all the twins. This is the first set of twins. They are fraternal. Then we had Mortimer Goth's triplets. Girls are identical, but the boy is fraternal. Then we had some fraternal twins, and identical twins, fraternal twins, and another fraternal twins because they're different genders. Another set of identical twins, another set of identical twins, and fraternal. Then 2 more sets of identical twins, a fraternal set, another fraternal set, an identical set, and the fraternal set from Noah Kane's second round. In my limited mermaid experiment, I ended up getting 3 sets of twins. So I got an identical set, and they had identical mermaid forms, then another identical set, but I think they were humans, and then I got a fraternal set who, interestingly enough, these last 2 sets of twins were consecutive somehow. Now, as for twinning rates, the longest without twins was 16 pregnancies, which was Darling Walsh through Neilani Mahi'ai, which that's like about half of San Myshuno, through the end of the Mermaids, and all of Brindleton Bay. The twinning rate was about 1 in 8.5 pregnancies, or 115.7 per 1,000 pregnancies. I say it that way because that's generally what you see in the real world is per 1,000. So there's about a 12%, which means there's about a 12% chance of twins with every pregnancy. The triplet rate. I had one set of triplets, which was Mortimer Goth triplets, in 121 pregnancies, which is also 8.26 per 1,000 pregnancies. However, because I never got a second set of triplets, I don't think I can really give a good guess on what the triplet rate is. Like this one in 121, that is a 0.8% chance. But again, I never got a second set of triplets, but I did look it up and it does seem like there is a 1% chance of triplets, which makes sense. 0.08 is not that far off from zero point 0.1. Yeah, it's hard to give a good guess. Now, maybe me getting triplets in my legacy challenge somehow messed that up. These are the triplets from my legacy challenge, but maybe getting triplets in a different save somehow messed that up, but I can't imagine that's how it works though. There's a thing related to twinning rates called Helen's law, and that does not hold true in this scenario. Helen's law says that if twins are 1 in x, triplets are 1 in x squared. So 1 in 8.5, 8.5 squared is not 121. However, if I had a second set of triplets, it would hold true, which is like one more set because then it would be like 1 in 61, and that's a lot closer to 8.5 squared. Again, I would just need one more triplet set. When it comes to twin features, I had 8 fraternal and 6 identical twins. Triplets were identical and fraternal. 3 of the fraternal twins were opposite sex twins, and when you age up identicals, they tend to have the same hairstyle and eyebrows, or facial hair too. However, some fraternal twins did have extremely similar features if they were the same sex. For example, Bernard Gossington's twin sons were fraternal, but they had a lot of similar feature numbers. Then I got a section about statistics by world. Starting with this big table I made, you can see the number of Townies, the number of single births, number of multiple births, the twinning rate per 1,000 pregnancies, and the average try for baby attempts. And as you can see, Windenburg had 6 sets of twins with the highest twinning rates, I guess what you might call the least fertile world, which is a really weird way of phrasing that, but the one with the highest number of average try for baby attempts is Sulani, maybe because Makoa Kealoha took 5 attempts. He's probably skewing the results. But the lowest one is Copperdale because somehow 14 townies in a row all took just 1. I also want to look at the sex of babies by row. Also, I want to mention I'm putting these in the order that they were done. So Willow Creek had 10 female and 8 male. Oasis Springs had 8 female and 5 male. Windenburg had 18 female and 16 male. San Myshuno had 10 female and 8 male. Brindleton Bay had 3 female and 4 male. Sulani had 10 female and 7 male. Hempford and Bagley had 5 female and 7 male, and Copperdale had 8 female and 13 male. And this does kind of match up with the baby gender ratio chart we looked at earlier over time, where it started out majority female and it ended, well, not majority male, but it ended slightly more male. The last 2 worlds have more male, and Brindleton Bay was the smallest world, so it's actually pretty even. But there's a lot more female babies at the beginning. Another thing I did in this experiment was I took the average sim by world. I took the average number within that world for eye color and shape, eyebrow shape, and nose, mouth, and body shape. For the skin tone, I took the most common category and I averaged the numbers just for that category, just for the townies that had that category. The hair color, I did have to take some extra steps with to get an accurate representation. Hair colors 1 through 14 stayed as that number. 15 through 22 all got changed to 7. Those are the dyed colors. 23 is the graying brown that got changed to 6, which is just brown. And 24 is the graying black that got changed to 1. And I had to change the hair color, otherwise they just kept ending up redheads because the red's kind of in the middle. Gender was decided by the majority, except for Copperdale, where I did put Ash in a third non-binary category because otherwise male and female were perfectly tied, and doing that changed it so that the majority would be male. On the left here we have Willow Creek. That's base game world released in September of 2014. Then we have Oasis Springs, also base game September 2014. He actually did have red hair. That's probably coming from the Calientes. Then Windenburg, being the sim embodiment of Windenburg from Get Together, released December of 2015. San Myshuno from City Living, released 2016. Brindleton Bay from Cats and Dogs, released November 2017. Island Living, released June 2019. This is Sulani. This is Hen Fordon Bagley, released from Cottage Living, released July 2021. And finally, Copperdale. I forgot to put a space there. It's supposed to be Copperdale. Released from High School Years, which was released July 2022. One of the first things I noticed as I was putting those slides in order is diversity. There's a lot more ethnic ambiguousness over time and more dark-skinned townies, which obviously skews the average to be a bigger number, which is a darker skin tone. There are more worlds inspired by other countries, like San Myshuno, I think takes a lot of its inspiration from Japan. There is still no Africa. I do think that is an area that The Sims 4 is lacking in terms of worlds. And as for the skin tone update that came out in December of 2020, oh, that was like 4 years ago at this point. There were 8 townies with neutral skin released before, who were Mortimer Goth, Eric Lewis, Dominic Fires, Marcus Flex, Baco, Anaya, and Billy Jang, Brant Hecking, and Supriya Delgado. That does include the refreshed Mortimer Goth. I'm not sure if that includes the old Mortimer Goth, but probably not. And they're all Sims of color. They're not really, I don't think they're really supposed to represent like white Sims. And of the 25 Sims that came with packs released after the skin tone update, there were 6 Sims that had neutral or cool skin tones. So overall, it does seem like Townies are getting to represent more different kinds of people in these packs. That's my big point. That's my big takeaway from this. Finally, this is a cool little Sankey graph I made. On the left, we have the total Townies, the 4 mermaids, and the 6 repeated pregnancies. You can see they all go to the world, and then a lot of them just go to single birth. There were 109 single births, but there were also 14 twin births with 6 identical twins and 8 fraternal twins, and 1 triplet birth. I don't know if I ever said this, but this one other category, that's Father Winter. He's Elsa's father. Now, The Sims 4 is a life simulation, so we obviously have to look at comparisons to real life. In real life, is there always a 50% chance? There is always a 50% chance for baby of either sex. If you took a basic biology class like I did in ninth grade, you might recognize a Punnett square. A mother has 2 X chromosomes and a father has an XY, which means a 50% chance of a daughter and a 50% chance of a son. However, there are studies that will say that like there might be a genetic factor in the sex of a baby. Like you can find online, there are stories of people who like their family has not had a daughter in like so many generations, and that is weird. Also, the United States does have slightly more boys at birth. There is a 1.05 to 1 male to female ratio at birth. However, on my hypothesis slide, and you'll see it again at the end, I had the age distribution for genders. And so there's a lot more boys at birth, but there's also a higher infant mortality rate for boys for some reason, and women just tend to live longer. Over the summer, was working a job where I had very little to do, and I was sitting in a windowless cinder block, freezing cold room all day. So one day I spent an entire day researching twins and real life genes and then adding it to this slideshow. So here's some twin facts. It is estimated that 1/3 of twins are identical, based according to the NHS Guide for Being Pregnant with Twins. The rate is believed to be the same worldwide, which is estimated to be 3.5 to 4 according to a study from 2011 about twinning rates in developing countries. Another thing to mention is that no one really knows why identical twins happen. Well, there's the fusion theory and the fission theory, but no one really knows like why an egg will just like start to split like that. Anyway, there are also 2 reported cases of sesquizygotic twins, one in 2007 and one in 2019. This is one of my favorite go-to facts because there are actually three types of twins. As you can see on this image I found on the internet, fraternal twins are 2 eggs fertilized by 2 different sperm, which results in 2 babies that are just normal siblings. And then there's also identical twins, which is 1 egg and 1 sperm that splits into 2 babies and they share 100% of their DNA. And then there's semi-identical twins, also called sesquizygotic, which is when 2 sperm fertilize 1 egg at the exact same moment, and it splits into babies that share 100% of their maternal DNA, but only 50% of their paternal DNA, sharing 75% of their DNA overall. Twinning rates also vary by region. South Asia, Southeastern Asia, and Latin America have the lowest twinning rates in the world, around 6 to 9 per 1,000 births, according to a study in 2011 about twinning rates in developing countries. And Central Africa has the highest twinning rates in the world, with like 18 or more per 1,000 births. The country of Benin is the highest at 27.9 per 1,000 births. However, according to the CDC's 2022 birth statistics report, the United States had 31.2 twins per 1,000 births. However, in the United States, there has been a big increase in recent years in access and use of IVF and fertility treatments, which can result in more twins. There's also been an increasing maternal age, and as you get older, you release more eggs on a cycle, and that's how you get fraternal twins. And as I said, the identical twin rate is believed to be the same worldwide. So these twinning rates varying by region, that's really, I think, in like fraternal twins for the most part, but I'm not a biologist. And I already mentioned Helen's law for multiple births, which says that if twins are 1 in X, then triplets are 1 in X squared. This is a really fun map I found of twinning rates from 2010 to 2015. This is from a report called Twin Peaks: More Twinning in Humans Than Ever Before, which was published in 2021. And as you can see, sub-Saharan, like Central Africa, has the highest twinning rates. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but like there's Nigeria, kind of in this part of Africa, and then there's like Benin, which is right next to it. Now, in real life, we also have dominant and recessive genes, and I did research about this, but I also just remember this from my ninth grade biology class. Eye and hair color are either dominant or recessive. So, blue eyes and blonde hair are recessive genes, which would mean either both your parents are carriers and have that gene but might not show it, or maybe both your parents just have blonde hair and blue eyes. Dark eyes and dark hair are the dominant traits. Freckles are also dominant. If your parent has freckles, you probably do too. Genes are thought to contribute in part to moles, according to the National Library of Medicine. There are genes for things like nose pointedness and cartilage, according to a Science.org article from 2016. And about 30% of vitiligo cases are believed to be genetic, according to the Cleveland Clinic. I'm not a biologist, I'm a computer scientist, so I don't really understand the science of all this, but this does relate to The Sims in that freckles had a 100% inheritance rate, and moles and age lines and vitiligo didn't, and in that things like nose and mouth shape were inherited in a weird way, but they were inherited. So overall, The Sims comparisons, we have babies inheriting from one parent for each feature, but not really a combination of both. In real life, you might get things that are a combination of both, but again, I'm not a biologist. There are no dominant or recessive genes. However, I didn't really look at babies over multiple generations, but honestly, looking at the Sims 4 and having played The Sims 4 for 9 years, I have almost 2,500 hours in The Sims 4. I don't know if I've said that, but like I have put so much time into The Sims 4, I am qualified to talk about this. I don't think they would put in dominant or recessive genes. That just doesn't seem like something they would have really thought about. Like, no offense to the Sims 4 coders, but that's not really something I've seen necessarily in my legacy save. Twins are more frequent than realistic generally. A lot of the twinning rates I saw it for like by world were upwards of 100 per 1,000 pregnancies, but in real world the highest is like 30 per 1,000. But more frequent twins is just more fun. There was, however, a different ratio of fraternal to identical. We had 8 to 6, whereas in real life it's kind of like 2/3, 1/3. One gender is slightly more common. We saw a 1 to 1.09 male to female ratio, which is pretty close to the 1.05 to 1 male to female ratio seen in the United States in 2022. The longest same gender streak that I saw in this game was 6 girls. And in real life, there's a couple in Michigan that has 13 sons and no daughters. I googled that. And finally, freckles are a dominant gene, with the only skin detail with 100% inheritance. It's actually the only skin detail with any inheritance. One other thing I want to add is I don't really have the ability right now to investigate the other Sims games, but it does seem like they went for an ease of implementation over realism in the game. And like, I get it. I'm a computer scientist. It seems like it would be really hard to make a sim inherit a nose shape from two parents simultaneously rather than just saying like, oh, use one parent. So while it might not be the most realistic inheritance, it does still make sense. They are still inheriting from one parent. All right, we've finally reached the conclusion of this long, long slideshow. Also, real quick, these are my sources I use. Just wanted to make sure to cite them. But back to my hypotheses. So Sims in The Sims 4 have babies with a 0.9 to 1 male to female ratio, or a 1.09 to 1 female to male ratio. And this is similar, but not statistically significant, to the reciprocal of the real life ratio of 1.05 to 1 male to female seen in the United States in 2022. In my other hypothesis, Sims do inherit most traits in a realistic way that can be easily predicted, while some traits are random. And I would say these are both true. While the gender ratio in The Sims 4 isn't the expected 50-50, it is still realistic, with a slight skew in the other direction. The United States has slightly more males, but my Sims 4 save has slightly more females. And you actually can predict the way most traits go in The Sims 4. And it is somewhat realistic, at least when it comes to like eye color or hair color. As for the realism of like nose shape and mouth shape, I can't really speak to that because I'm not a biologist. I don't really understand it. So Finally, let's recap everything we've learned. The sex ratio is close to 50-50, but did lean female. And I would be interested to know if the ratio leaning female is just purely coincidental, or is that just something that somehow happens? Does every save lean female? I doubt it because my legacy save does skew male. I counted up all the babies. It skews slightly male. And to repeat, it's a 1 to 1.09 male to female ratio. Ever so slightly female. Children inherit eye and hair color from one parent. Unless the eye color is green or gray, specifically, oh, what was it? It was 6 and 15. It gets kind of weird there, and I don't really know why, quite frankly, but it is still predictable, and the child will inherit green or gray eyes. It's just a slightly different number. Eyebrow shape and hairstyle are random, which is also true because you can't give birth to a child with a particular hairstyle. That's not how that works. Skin color is within 3 of the average between the parents. It could be in either direction, but it's within 3 of that average. Unless the difference is really big, in which case they might just inherit from one parent or the other, and it's the same if the parents have different categories too. Shape features map different numbers from male to female, and children will inherit those from one parent. I will admit there may be issues with my mappings, especially when it comes to body shape. That one was just all over the place. Or actually, it wasn't, and that was the problem. It was just one number. It was one body shape the whole time. And finally, freckles are the only inheritable skin detail with a 100% inheritance rate, and moles, age details, and vitiligo did not get inherited. Also, birthmarks and a couple of the other details were not investigated, but if I had to guess, they probably are not inherited either. Alright, and we've reached the end of my slideshow. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you played The Sims as obsessively as I do, then I hope you learned something about how this game works. I'm not claiming to have it 100% figured out, but I think I got most of the way there. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you like this video, I do have another video about The Sims 4, specifically related to the pricing of packs, but subscribe if you want to see more data videos.